I have put thousands of miles onto my Lone Peaks over the last decade, and it is the shoe I will continue to wear on all of my backpacking trips. What's up, trail fam? Today we're talking about the brand new Altra Lone Peak 9. You can see a lot of shoes here on the table. These three over here are the new model we just got into the store, and all of these shoes here on the table are actually my shoes. We've got the all-weather 2s, some mids, the 6s and the 7s. I've been rocking the Lone Peaks, I don't even know, maybe for over a decade now. I used to have the 2s and the 3s, but I tossed them in the bin because they smelled like hell. But I have been wearing these Altra shoes in general. As you'll see over the next few videos we pump out for these Altra shoes, I've got a ton of these just sitting in a bag in the back, and I'll bring them all out and talk about how they've made some changes from these old models to this new Lone Peak 9. Right out the gate, the Lone Peak 9 definitely got an upgrade in materials. So it's got a reinforced mesh upper that's a little bit more breathable and lightweight. You know, it's got a little bit better airflow than the 7s here in particular, and it is a little bit heavier than the 8s. So with that, you know, it's got that reinforced upper, a little bit better toe protection here, a better mesh. So overall, more protection and lighter weight, more breathable. So right out the gate with that upper here on the toe box, definitely gonna be an upgrade over the last two models. Something else to talk a little bit about is some blowouts that the shoe has seen over the years. So you can see here, for instance, on this 6, there's not much going on here in room of like toe protection or toe rubber. That's what makes this shoe in particular a little bit lighter. And then as you see, as we go up into the 7 and the 8, they start to get a little bit more rubber construction on the toes here. And then if you take a close look at the 9, like you'll see here in our B-roll, it's pretty gnarly, the amount of upgrades. So there was a complaint about the upper of this shoe with toe blowouts. You know, people use this Lone Peak as a thru-hiking backpacking shoe. I think between this and the Hoka Speedgoat, this might be like the most popular backpacking shoe on the face of the earth right now. It's pretty much like one of those things that belongs in every backpacker's kit. So they've got a lot of feedback from a lot of different people. Toe blowouts, a little bit of breathability issues on this shoe were definitely fixed on this Lone Peak 9. Now we'll get away from the top sole and go to the midsole of the shoe. You know, this is where you're gonna get a lot of that kind of snug feeling, the way that it holds your foot. Is it firm? Is it soft? Does it have good cushioning? And again, I think that they have responded well to the 6, 7, and 8's issues in this 9. It definitely feels like Altra is listening to us on this most recent shoe. There were some pretty big complaints with the 6, 7, and 8 over the last few years, and I feel like they are finally listening, because this shoe seems to have, so far at least, fixed all of those major qualms. So it's got that same stack height of 25 millimeters coming in again at that Altra Zero Drop shoe with that Ego midsole compound on here. But here's the deal with this one. The 9 is a touch firmer than the 6, 7, and the 8. So it's got a little bit of a stiffer feel to it, and they did that on purpose because, you know, these two shoes here are really mushy, really soft. Some people really like that. They like to feel every single thing under their foot. You want to feel like a little rock, a little stick, a little twig, know exactly what you're stepping on. Yeah, you know, I like that. I liked that feel with the Ultras, but with this one, they did make that midsole slightly stiffer. You know, it provides better energy return. So when you're putting that power into the shoe to propel you forward, it's going to respond better because it's stiffer. It's not going to be as mushy. The power is not going to sink into the shoe. It's going to propel you forward a little bit better. So better energy return and a little bit stiffer in that midsole overall as well. So something to take note of. With that stiffer midsole, it makes this shoe more of a technical beast. You know, whereas Altra has always made like long distance, really great backpacking and trail running shoes, they were known for being a little bit softer. So again, this is an upgrade if you're looking for something slightly stiffer to give you better optimal performance on those long hikes and trail runs. Now let's drop from the middle of the shoe down to the outsole of the shoe and the lugs. So the max track pattern, the lugs, you know, they haven't changed a ton. So the lugs are still 4 to 5 millimeters deep, but they're a little bit more angular. So you can see it just by looking at the shoe. The 9 here has a slightly smaller angle on the shoes. And again, that was created to give you a little bit better, forward energy, forward propulsion to sit on the trail and everything that you're pushing off against a little bit better, to give you better traction on those wet hikes where you're gonna be in the mud or the water or on any sort of rocky, uneven terrain. So those lugs can really sink down into what you're stepping on and provide you optimal support. Compared to the 7 and 8, that angle gives you a better kind of lateral push-off and stability on descents and those tighter turns. And you need to be doing tight turns, being quick on your feet, have lighter sand. This is gonna give you slightly better traction in those environments as well. All right, so we've talked about the top of the shoe, the middle of the shoe, and the base of the shoe. All in all, it has the same feel as the Altra shoes have tended to over the last decade. It has that same wide toe box, so super comfortable on your foot. It's gonna allow those toes to splay out and do exactly what our toes are supposed to do. Toes are not supposed to be locked up into your shoe like this. That's why I don't wear Nikes, I don't wear fashion shoes. Even right now, I'm wearing my extra tough boots. I like a shoe that allows my foot to do what it's supposed to do. We used to walk on flat feet like this. Altras are meant for your foot. The fit is very familiar to those older Lone Peaks, again with that generous toe splay, but the heel collar on this shoe is what they changed. So let's find this shoe here. Again, with this Lone Peak 7, you can see it's a little bit wider here. It might be kind of hard to see on camera. We'll try to get a good shot of it, but it's a little bit of a wider heel versus this is going to be a little bit of a narrower heel. So what that does again is lock into the back of your heel there. It gets rid of a lot of that heel play, which was causing some side to side motion and causing some people to get blisters kind of towards the back of their heel on the Achilles tendon. Again, you want a shoe that's going to provide tightness here and create a locking, holding feeling, and then give you a little bit more of an open toe box here. That's gonna make your foot do what it's supposed to do. So it's not gonna move around, and it's gonna allow your feet to be exactly in the position that they're supposed to be on the ground, especially with that zero drop. So if you have like a fatter heel, maybe a little bit of a wider heel, and you typically want a shoe that is wider, that's something to take note of, that this has a slightly tighter heel on that one. So it's gonna be a little bit snugger in the back of your foot there. So like we said, with that heel being a little bit more tightly sculpted, you're also gonna notice a performance increase, both uphill, but in particular downhill. You know, when you're putting on those miles and you're going down some steep, uneven, rocky or sandy terrain, you definitely want a shoe that's holding your foot tight. So that is a positive with this shoe for sure. Now, do you go half size up, half size down? I don't really know. We were just talking about this here before this shot. Connor said he went a half size up because, you know, when you're putting on a lot of miles, when you're doing a lot of damage to your foot by backpacking, putting on extended miles over rough terrain, your foot's gonna swell a little bit. So you might need to go a half size up. But I was just looking, and in this Lone Peak 6, I have an 11.5, and in the 7 and the mids and the all weathers, I dropped down to an 11. Is that because I started rock climbing and my foot shrunk? I don't know. That is why your retail store, your local outdoor gear shop is so important. You go try these shoes on and make sure they fit your foot and get the appropriate size for you. So if you're anywhere in the Midwest, make sure to come to our store in Toledo, Ohio, and we'll get you fit the right way. If you're finding this helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like, and leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching. All right, so we've talked about the meat and potatoes of the shoe. Now let's hop into a little bit of those extra features. You know, something that's pretty nice on all of these Lone Peak shoes from Altra, they've got that Gaiter system built in. So it's got this little kind of toe clip piece in the front where you lock that Gaiter in, and then the Gaiter strap here in the back where you're gonna be locking that in again, so it doesn't allow any dust or debris to get into the bottom of your shoe on those long distance hikes. You don't wanna be stopping every mile or two to unload little stones and sand from your shoes. That is annoying as hell. So again, with this being kind of that backpacker's shoe of choice, Altra has known to always continue to keep that feature in all of their shoes. Something else that they have here in this shoe, and they have a removable stone guard, which basically sits at the bottom of your shoe. If you're going through any talus fields, or you're going through any like really rocky, uneven terrain, and you know you're gonna be doing that on those trails, you keep that thing in your shoe. And if you're going on anywhere like where it's dirt, really soft, really easy, flat trails, if you wanna drop off an ounce, take that thing out of your shoe. So again, just a really feature-rich driven shoe that is meant for backpacking long distance trails. We're gonna talk a little bit about the weight of the shoe. So with these additional features, with the slightly better lugs, the different toe cap here, the mesh upper, this shoe is slightly heavier. I'm gonna look at here for the exact numbers. It's 11.3 ounces for the Lone Peak 9, 10.5 ounces for the 8, and about 10.9 ounces for the 7. So we're gaining an ounce, a half ounce of weight. So again, for lightweight backpacking, cool, sure, it's an ounce heavier, whatever, but that's not a big deal. It is a better shoe. It has better performance and all around, so that 1 ounce of extra weight on your feet is gonna provide a ton more support, comfort, and durability throughout those long trips. So definitely worth that half ounce to 1 ounce increase here. Not a big deal. Come on, people, we're not cutting our toothbrush here. And then one final complaint, we've kind of touched on it briefly, but a lot of people have complained about the lugs in the Ultra shoes over the last few models. In the beginning, in the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, it wasn't really a huge issue, but man, you can severely see it here. Not as much in the Lone Peak 6s here that I've got, but the 7s, my God, is this flat. And this is basically a walking shoe at this point. I mean, there's nothing left on the front or the back, and the midsole of the foot, it's got a little bit. So that angle change on here and a slightly better rubber component, they didn't change the thickness of the lugs or the depth of the lugs that we said, but so far, everyone that I've seen testing on these shoes, and myself included, I haven't put a ton of miles on these shoes recently, just because I have a 2-year-old and I haven't got to backpack as much as I used to over the last decade of my life. But I've heard nothing but just super good feedback that these lugs are outlasting definitely these 7s and the 8s, and they're back to their roots like they were in the 4, 5, and 6. So way better lugs on these as well, super important. If you're gonna be putting 200-300 miles on a pair of these, the lugs gotta last. All right, so who is this shoe for? Is it worth the upgrade? First of all, yes, it's worth the upgrade. These shoes are meant to be replaced every couple hundred of miles, especially if you're using this on a backpacking trip, AT to PCT or the CDT. You're gonna be wanting to put one of these in your backpacker's box at the drop off, where you're gonna be changing out some food every few hundred miles. Keep those feet fresh and make sure that they are, again, transferring that power to keep you moving safe and steady along those 1,000 or 2,000 mile trails. Who's it for? Again, long distance backpacker, an avid trail runner, or just somebody who really wants a high performance shoe and to look badass every day in their life. I do think the Lone Peak 9 is one of the best shoes that's ever been created. The Lone Peak line in general is one of the best shoes that has ever been created. There's a reason that we're on the 9. There's a reason people keep asking for this shoe to come back year after year after year. And I think it's a line that's gonna stick around forever. So yeah, go ahead and quote me on that. I do think this is the best backpacking shoe that has ever been created. I have put thousands of miles onto my Lone Peaks over the last decade, and it is the shoe I will continue to wear on all of my backpacking trips. So is this shoe for you? Probably yes. If you're watching this video, go ahead, hop on over to our website and buy this shoe. It's worth it, it's a good price point, and you can also get 10% off if you use the code YouTube10. So go on over to our website, check it out, drop a comment if you got any questions down below. Thanks so much for watching. We really do appreciate you guys, and we'll see you out on the trails. Later.